this time, we will have the privilege of the floor. If you want to step up to the podium, give your name, where you're from, and please keep it to 5 minutes. Appreciate it.
Don Wilder, Brownville. This marks the 30th month that corrections officers and dispatchers have been working without a contract. Some in this room are willing to blame the union for not accepting the latest demands made by the county. Some legislators have said they stand with us and have vowed their support. We would like to take this opportunity to say thank you. This has not been, or has it ever been, a negotiation. It has been a list of demands dictated by Mr. Miller and his team. Mr. Miller and his team have used every trick in the book to undermine and prolong the process. They have shown little to no respect for the process or the members of our negotiating committee. Mr. Miller canceled the meeting just prior to the CSEA vote on their contract, giving the excuse that Mr. Hagman and Mr. Kaskin were unable to attend. Mr. Hagman has never attended any of these negotiations, and Mr. Kaskin has only shown up for about half. I would like to remind you that Mr. Miller picked the date, not the union. This last meeting was calculated and deliberately designed to create hostility by Mr. Miller's team showing up an hour and a half late for the meeting. Mr. Miller started the meeting off with statements that the county will not pay corrections officers and dispatchers more than any other bargaining unit in the county. That this was now going to be a 6-year contract instead of the 3 to 4 year contract that was originally discussed. That we would be receiving the same medical plan that CSEA had just ratified, which is in fact worse than the original offer. And last, that there would be no consideration for hazardous duty pay. I would also like to inform this board that over the last 2 weeks, Mr. Lesniak has attempted to contact Mr. Miller in an attempt to either come back to the table or to move things forward. Could someone please explain to us why it takes 2 weeks to return a phone call? Is there any wonder why we're in the 30th month without a contract? Why would you ask us back to the negotiating table if you had no intention of trying to come to common ground and to close a deal? The fact is that since CSEA ratified their contract, the county felt there was no need in further negotiation. Corrections officers and dispatchers would have to succumb to the county's demands or take nothing. So much for bargaining in good faith. This was just a public relations moment for the county to look good. All verbiage, no actual substance. For all that had happened at the last meeting, a letter could have been sent to the union stating your request had been reviewed and denied. The negotiating habits of this county are less than fair. It took over 3 years of starving the deputies out before they finally settled their contract. Do you really think they signed because they got a fair contract, or were they just tired of the fight and gave in? The county didn't waste any time writing an article to the Watertown Times proclaiming they saved taxpayers $138,000 on the deputies' contract. I believe this is a disgrace. You have saved the taxpayers this money, but you did it off the backs of your employees. That could have been a child's education fund or possibly helped to increase the quality of life of a public servant. Mr. Gray, I spoke with you a few weeks ago about some of us sitting down with you and working out some of these issues, but since I haven't received a phone call from you, I guess this isn't going to happen. During our conversation, you mentioned that you just wanted to treat all county employees the same. Well then, when can corrections officers and dispatchers that have children that are ready for college be able to send their kids up to the campus to sign up for their free college courses? When will corrections officers and dispatchers start working their summer hours? And the next time a nor'easter hits the area, will you send the jail personnel and dispatchers home with pay so we won't have to be out in the bad weather? See, we're not the same. You know as well as I that we have to be there 24/7, 365. To Mr. Hageman, we're just a dollar amount he plugs into the budget at the end of the month, a cost of doing business. He doesn't care about people, only crunching the numbers and making the budget balance. That's where the legislators come in. You're the balance. You're supposed to put the humanity into the equation and not see us as burdens on the county. We should be seen as assets. In the last 2 years, all I've read in the paper is how upset or disgusted some of the legislators are that these contracts are not being settled or that unions are being unrealistic. As Mr. Berto stated, he was miffed and he was just going to sit back and do absolutely nothing. Maybe that's the problem. The county sitting back doing absolutely nothing. Mr. Nabawanik stated that he felt threatened when a member of our negotiating committee made a political statement that we would see him in November. Sir, this pales in comparison to the threats we receive in the jail on a regular basis. Mr. Gray's article about his business suffering as county employees were calling and closing their accounts with him, and another article stating his dissatisfaction of a CSEA worker trying to turn the negotiations into a political issue. Mr. Gray, what other recourse do we have? We can't strike. We can't walk out. The county is only willing to take benefits away and offer little to nothing in return. Would you please explain to us, how do we stand up for ourselves? When we know the county is wrong and most of the legislators are following the party line, if we starve them out long enough, they will sign. How do we accept the fact that adjacent counties are making an average of $5,000 or more starting pay doing the same job that we do? An article in the Watertown Daily Times stated that St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators created 7 full-time corrections officers jobs with the base salaries of $36,143. For corrections officers in Jefferson County, we have to be on the job for 9 years to receive comparable pay. An article in today's Watertown Daily Times supports our position in that this county pays its executive personnel at parity or greater, as in the example of Mr. Hagerman making from $10,000 to $40,000 more per year than his counterparts in adjacent counties. What I haven't heard from the legislator is one word of praise for the job that all county employees do. Mr. Berto stated in a recent article he didn't want to have to impose a 0% contract. Well, sir, that's your right to do so. But imposing a 0% contract is only going to send a clear message to all that the imposition of such a contract is nothing more than punishment for not accepting the county's demands. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're asking for is not unrealistic, it's not pie in the sky. It's parity with adjacent counties, counties that we train, counties that don't have the growth and prosperity that this county is enjoying. And their legislators have somehow found the ability to pay their employees a fair wage. In closing, decisions that you legislators make today will have far-reaching effects on this department as well as the county, not only for tomorrow, but for years to come. Do the right thing, step up to the plate, and start taking care of your employees. Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the board?